Netflix movie theaters, Mondays with Mike.
Mondays with Mike. Mondays with Mike.
So you remember the WB?
I do.
They got that frog dancing. I always thought the WB was pretty funny. More funny than Netflix. But now Netflix will own it. And Netflix will own HBO as well. So it was HBO Max, and then it went to Max, and then it went back to HBO Max, and now it's going to be Netflix.
Here we are.
Yeah, it's a crazy world. So a lot of people, especially the screenwriters, I think, issued a statement. This is exactly the sort of thing that anti-monopoly laws are supposed to prevent. Do you think this will have a material impact in our lives? Is it good news or is it bad news? Do you think prices will go up?
When you say material impact, do you mean, prices go up? Yes, of course prices would go up. So if Netflix controls a significant share of the market for streaming or for content or for whatever, they can command a premium for anybody who wants access to those things, right? So the reason you could command a higher price for something like streaming is you could say, look, I've got 80% of all the things you want to watch, or 70% or 60%, and nobody else can offer it because we have the exclusive streaming rights. Good luck. You either pay us the money or you don't get to see it unless you buy each individual show if they have a DVD or a box set or whatever. It's prohibitively expensive for anybody who wants to watch things. Because the whole argument for streaming, same with the argument for television, is that they bundle huge amounts of content that they can provide you at a cheaper cost than it would be to otherwise see it on your own. For TV, the argument was that they have the ads to help mitigate those costs. For streaming, the same argument's being made, that they offer an ad version for cheaper and a non-ad version for higher, because the ads help to defray the cost of providing it to you. What's worrisome for Netflix is that Netflix, they're infamous for canceling shows within 2 or 3 seasons of them airing. And so there's going to be a lot less. I can understand for the screenwriters why there's real concern, is because your bread and butter, if you're a screenwriter or TV writer, is you get one of these long running shows, I think Grey's Anatomy or some of these other like sitcoms or soap operas or whatever, that just go on and on.
The Simpsons.
Sure. And you write for every episode and you get the residuals and everything's great, lovely, and everybody's making money. In this circumstance, it's different because there's a real culture, I guess you could call it, of shows not lasting as long as they might otherwise do on TV, for example, in the TV culture. And then the other major issue is actually brick and mortar theaters, right? Because the WB also has a movie studio, they release a lot of movies to movie-seeing audiences at movie theaters. And Netflix doesn't quite have that level of commitment to the movie theater experience, especially for duration. So Netflix may have a movie for a week or two in theaters, but they're not going to have a movie for whatever the longest runtime is, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, however long that is.
We hope they will, but not based on past behavior.
Yeah, I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
Because the whole business model of Netflix is streaming. It's the convenience of streaming anywhere you want through the internet. And the whole issue with movie theaters is that you're not streaming in a binge fashion, actually, on Netflix. So part of the model for Netflix is binge watching. There was at one point, I don't know if they still do this, but there was a point, I used to have Netflix, I don't anymore, but there was a point where when they released a show, they'd release the whole show, not episode by episode to see the show, the whole entire show at once. Why did they do that? They did that so that people would binge watch the shows, that you'd watch the show from beginning to end in its entirety when it was released. You cannot do that for theaters or movies in theaters because the movies aren't played sequentially or the shows aren't. They could, if movie theaters changed their business model and just showed a show all day from beginning to end. They could. It could happen.
They could have Netflix movie theaters, Netflix and Screen, where you get a day pass and then they play one flick after another.
I do. Or you get like a movie theater screen that you can rent out as a group to watch a whole show from beginning to end. I'd do that. That would be cool.
That sounds good.
If it was cheaper than subscribing to Netflix for the whole month or movie. It's not happening. It could. Some people want to see stuff on huge screens. There is a different, I will agree with this, there is a different tangible experience to seeing a movie in a movie theater than there is watching on a TV or something. That's just the way it goes. People pay a premium, right, to see a movie in a movie theater or an IMAX or whatever that they wouldn't otherwise pay. And at least from my perspective, there's money on the table that Netflix isn't actively pursuing that it could now when it acquires the WB. Will it? I don't know. I'm not sure, but I hope so. Movie theaters play a big part in the sort of American experience, or not just the American, but the developed world experience. It's also a thing where a movie theater is a shared experience, right? Where Netflix generally is like one, maybe two or three people, because it's usually a family plan, or it's not as common to watch Netflix together with a group as it would be for a movie theater. You lose something in society when you lose all these spaces that people would go to, drive-in movie theaters in general. The audience cheers, the audience boos, they clap, they laugh. All that collective experience goes away. It would be like if they took plays or operas and put it on streaming only. You lose something in that. Not just you lose the sort of cultural spaces, but you lose the shared sort of collective experience. And that is the concern I do have when you consolidate media this much, is that not everybody is on the same page about the value of those shared spaces and those shared things. And there is value, I think. I mean, I've seen an opera stream, like I've watched the Metropolitan Opera on YouTube, and then I've seen an opera in person. The opera in person, very different. The circus.
The circus streaming.
Seriously, all these things, right? Like live theater is a much different experience than seeing something on a screen. We lose something as a species if we just give up or whittle away at these things that are the cultural edifice. Fine arts and literature, you lose something when you don't have these live performances or these live screenings in a movie theater, for instance.
I think of those two as, I think of the major new art forms of the U.S. as the movie and the music video. Because when before in history do you have anything akin, you had theaters, of course, but beforehand you really didn't have much like that. And the videography that goes into it, I think, will be what people in the future think of when they think of this era. Like we think of the Colosseum and gladiatorial games when we think of Roman Empire, and we think of knights and the plague, when we think of the medieval era, and we think of mechanical clocks, when you think of the 1600s. I think it'll be like movies and music videos. Now, there's another idea, though. Netflix drive-in theater. Netflix and Drive.
Sure. I just quickly looked up how many people work in movie theaters and the broader movie industry as a whole. It's about around 150,000 or so work in movie theaters or are employed by movie theaters, and then 400,000 or so in the movie industry, making shows and movies. This move, I think, will lead to less people employed overall in the movie industry and by movie theaters, because I don't see it expanding when you consolidate things because there's less competition, right? So competition breeds more innovation, and it also leads to a drive to make more stuff to compete. If Netflix and WB merge, then consolidation will mean that they won't have to compete as much, since they were direct competitors with each other, in the creation of new content, that they can stagnate and rely on the existing library of things. Because the only things that they would be competing for Netflix once they merge with WB would be with their internal like subdivisions, like HBO content competing with Netflix original shows or whatever, that they'd have like their separate little silos or cohorts or whatever. But the actual competition in the industry as a whole would be less. Because remember, it's billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars in this acquisition. That means that the equivalent of tens of billions of dollars worth of value is being consolidated, being squeezed into a less competitive box. The outflow, I can't imagine would be more like more stuff. It would be less stuff, just by virtue of the fact that you compete to generate more viewers towards your product. And if you're the only game in town, less people are going to be wooed or whatever you want to call it. Or less people are going to be turned to the other competitors because they want to access what you have already. Yeah. So that's what I mean. In terms of the material impact on our lives, this is all entertainment. So the things that are really going to be affected are the price of Netflix will go up. I don't see why it would go down. Why would it ever go down? If there's money they can make it, they're going to make as much as they can. They have to if they have shareholders. And then it's going to be in the quality of content. I don't think it'll be as good. And the amount of content, I don't think there will be as much. I guess the one last thing would be the economic ramifications, is that movie theaters are considered a sort of entry level job for teenagers, for a summer job, taking tickets and selling concessions. And if there's less movie theaters, there's less entry level jobs for young people, which will lead to more social isolation and generally just more people struggling to find a place for themselves in the world.
Bad stuff.
Yeah, which I would argue leads to an increase in turning inwards, right? So looking for escapism, playing more video games, more substance abuse, more depression. That's one of those things where it again is like you just throw it on the pile of things that society will have to address in the future is a higher rate of homelessness. People can't get paying jobs, or there will be an increase in the need for what we've talked about, guaranteed jobs, like a social work program, like the CCC or the Works Progress Administration, building dams, building bridges, building parks, building roads, getting paid to paint murals and to write books and to paint. That I can't imagine. I think Biden was on the right path where he wanted to make a works program for climate change, for teaching people how to do solar panels and how to work with wind. And I can't imagine that the Trump administration or Trumpism in general as a political movement is going to do that they're going to increase given the fact that Doge fired so many people and cut so many programs. I can't imagine they're going to reverse course and be like, you know what? We made a huge mistake. Let's fund all that research and hire back all those people and give as many people who need jobs. If that's going to happen, it's going to happen after the midterms or most likely after 2028 if Vance isn't elected president, if whoever the alternative is elected. Because we're at a fork in the road. On one fork, you lead to whatever this is, and then the other fork is better, different. There you go. Maybe not better, but certainly different.
With more streaming providers, not less, but they have to charge less because there's so many of them.
Yeah, and offer discounts and deals if you want to compete.
I did see that Disney Plus Hulu deal, and I was tempted to get it, but I wasn't tempted enough. There was a guy, I'll post it on the website. These were 2 segments over the course of Thursday and Friday night. It might have been Thursday and Friday.
December 4th and 5th.
And this fellow, he was 88. He was working at a grocery store. A TikToker, first of all, gives him a $400 tip, which is generous. It's also a good way of generating views. But if that's what people are viewing, I guess that's good. But then he went farther and he started a GoFundMe for this gentleman. And now he has had $1.77 million raised for him, and he gets to retire. I wonder if he gets to keep all the money. I wonder if his descendants get to inherit the proceeds, or whether it's a deal where you can live off the rest of it, but we're gonna take it back when we're done, or when you're done, or something. Because I thought 1.77 million, that's enough for 20 or more years, probably more. This guy have 20 or more years, but it was great. It was great that they were able to help that guy, and it was great that he's able to now to retire based on the kindness of strangers. But the question becomes, where did the system serve him wrong that he ended up having to work at the grocery store when he was 88? So his General Motors pension dried up, probably in 2008, I would assume. Then his wife got very sick, and they had to sell the house. And apparently she survived the illness, but then she might have died of natural causes at a ripe old age. So he's an octogenarian, and he was working. His wife's already passed, So the problem has been ameliorated in that he no longer has to work. But how many other people are in a similar situation? What about our system failed them?
Sure, three different failures. The first failure is the medical system. If the medical expenses were so great that they had to sell their house, that's bad. It shouldn't be so expensive to receive medical treatment that you have to sell everything you own just to get it. So, some kind of universal healthcare system or some kind of system to provide medical care that's way less expensive would have improved that situation. That's the first failure. The second failure is the GM pension failure, that there was no alternative provided by the government to make people whole in a bankruptcy for private corporation where someone's told they would receive a pension and then they don't. GM's Chapter 11 happened in 2009. Is GM still a company? Yes, GM is still in business. So the losers in that circumstance would be the ones who lost their pension because the corporation GM still exists, but the people who were initially supposed to receive the pension or the money, they lost out. It's a profound failure on the part of government and society that there's no way to ensure that people who have earned a pension are able to keep their pension through no fault of their own, right? That the company they work for went under. That sucks. And then the third failure would have to be Social Security, that it's not enough from the Social Security I presume this individual earned over a lifetime of working, that it wasn't sufficient to pay his bills and expenses in his old age, right? Because the whole point of Social Security is that it's meant to keep people out of the gutter, from being homeless, from being able to afford some existence once they no longer can work. And so clearly, Social Security isn't enough or doesn't pay enough. If this guy felt he had to work at a grocery store at 88, it's just a fact, right? If the expenses, whatever they were in his life, are so great, then there is a failure of some kind in our system of the safety nets we have to help people who need help. That's just the way it is. I guess the other issue would be because I listened to the story and it was really sad. The fact that he's still working at 88 at a grocery store. The other issue I think would be that turning to charity, to philanthropy, is not a way to have a retirement system for anyone. That we shouldn't be relying on these, what's the word, unpredictable, uncertain, inequitable, there you go, inequitable systems, right?
Yeah, the whims of 15 minutes of fame.
Sure, exactly. He lucked out that a streamer, a popular streamer, found him and had the social capital to then tell the whole world, global audience, hey, I found this guy who shouldn't be working at 88 because that's really old and should be retired and able to live off his retirement. Let's help him, and then helps him. We shouldn't have to rely on those kinds of wins, uncertainties, and someone trying to generate views for their streaming as our mechanism for helping people. There's got to be a better way than that, right? There's got to be even just the job aspect. Maybe we create jobs for old people that are just retirement, that they just get to sit around doing retirement things and we're paying them to be retired.
Sure, like bookkeeping or web design or things where you can be stationary.
Or like a museum of living history. So if you've lived a long life, maybe people can go and just chat with you about the things you've seen and the experiences you've had as an older person. What was it like working for GM and the constant ebb and flow of international car sales and competitions, of being triumphant and then watching the company you work for so long collapse in on itself. But the point is, come up with make work jobs. This is a place government can do a great job, is libraries and public services and all that, where you give people a job, in quotation marks, of them talking to young people and telling them, don't put all your eggs in one basket, invest well, learn marketable skills. I don't know. This is what happened to me. Let it be a cautionary tale. Here I am.
Yeah, sure.
There's got to be ways. There's got to be something that can be done that's better than the whims of fate and eating cat food or living in a gutter or anything like that. There's got to be better. We know there's got to be better because there used to be worse.
That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah. Good for him that he's able to retire. I hope he enjoys his retirement. I hope he's got a good deal of time left on this earth. I hope that others can enjoy their retirement, and it probably won't be on the 15 minutes of fame for most people.
Yeah. I think it's great that it happened. It's wonderful that life has gifted him this opportunity, that this chance has gone his way. And hopefully, I think the big thing is if he had any debts from the medical care or any serious.
That might be why he needed so much of the money, yeah.
Yes, that if there were any debts remaining that may have gone to his family, that this will at least help to defray that they won't inherit any serious debts from the illness or the medical debts or anything like that. And hopefully, if he had to sell his house, now he can live in somewhere that's safe, comfortable, affordable, and that he can retire. That working is stressful, it's difficult, and it's also for someone who's older, interacting with people in person is how disease gets spread. Remember COVID?
Yep.
And the issues there. It is safer to not have to venture out every day into the world and interact with as many people as I'm sure he had to as working at a grocery store. Yeah, it's a good feel-good story.
It is. Mondays with Mike.